Thank you for joining us for today's webinar, Sentrol Switches, a switch for every application. My name's Jeff Royston and I'm the Chief Technical Officer at Alarm Corp. For those that haven't been on one of our webinars before, I might just run through some housekeeping before we get started. You'll notice at the moment that you're muted, and you will remain muted for the duration of the webinar. And if you wouldn't mind clicking on the hand icon, just so I can make sure that I can see that you can see my presentation and hear me, that would be great. Okay, brilliant. Got plenty of hands. So you can lower them now. And if at any time you want to ask any questions, please feel free to type a question in and hit the send key. And then at the end of the webinar, we'll run through those questions and answer those for you. Okay. Just before, I suppose, we get into it in terms of our topic today, to better understand it, we might just have a bit of a brief look, a bit of a history and a bit of a look at the reed switch. To most of you, it's going to be common knowledge, but for others, it may not be. So let's just run through these slides. I'll read the next couple, but it'll just give us a better understanding on the reed switch and its history, I guess. In 1936, the reed switch was invented by Bell Telephone Laboratories, and initially that was for phones and telecommunication applications. Very soon afterwards was utilised in security, and obviously has been done since that time. Back in the 70s, the balanced or biased magnetic reed switch was invented, and that was invented to overcome some of the limitations of a single reed switch. We'll have a little bit of a talk about that in further slides, but yeah, they're really the only two major stepping stones that the reed switch has made. It's pretty much remained unchanged for all of this time. So what is a reed switch? The reed switch consists of a pair of ferrous metal contacts or three springy metal reeds located within a sealed glass tube. The two reed switch normally has open contacts that are closed while in operation, and they're referred to as a normally closed contact. In a three-pronged reed scenario, it has a pair of normally open and normally closed contacts. The switch is enclosed in a small tube, and it's controlled by a magnet or a magnetic field. It works with the help of an additional magnet, which when it's placed close to the switch, the magnet makes contact and pulls the contacts together to create an electrical circuit. The results are a change in the contacts to the opposite state. So if we have a look at our drawing or our picture over here, we've got our two contacts, our glass tube, and when the magnet is brought in, it connects those two contacts together. It's pretty simple. What are some of the advantages? I suppose since I've already said that the switches remain pretty much unchanged or with very little changes for the past 80 odd years, what makes the switch attractive to use? Here are some of the reasons. These don't all necessarily relate to security, but why it's so popular in any case. It has a very short operating time. In other words, the second you bring the magnet in front of the contacts close. So it's in the millisecond range. It's extremely quick. It has the ability to carry extremely small currents for some industries. It has a very low capacitance, and it's even able to transfer very high frequency signals up to about 7 gig with minimal or no signal loss. It has a very high isolation resistance, up to an extremely high number, so it's basically infinity. It has a long-term, stable, and a very low contact resistance. So when the switch is closed, there's basically no resistance between the two contacts. The switch will happily work forever in its latch mode, so it will happily work for years and years with the magnet next to the switch, and when it's removed, it will open. It works with an extremely wide temperature range. It works in very demanding, dusty, moisty, or corrosion environments without issues. The switch can happily be placed on devices that are vibrating up to about 2000 Hertz. And it has a very long lifetime. At the rates listed, it says typically has up to a 10 by 10 cycles. I got my calculator out just to check that out. So basically, if we have a reed switch opening and closing every second continuously, the reed would still be working in about 300 years' time. So, very long period. Today in particular, though, we'll be talking about Sentrol. I suppose why would be one question is why are we talking about Sentrol? Why is Sentrol a topic of conversation? Basically, Sentrol have been making reed switches for at least 40 years, and to be honest, I tried to do as much homework on this as I could, and I couldn't find out when they started business. But I know Sentrol switches have been in operation for my entire career, going back to the 80s, and no doubt well before that as well. It still was, and it still is, the name and the product that pretty much everyone else in the industry tries to duplicate. For a vast majority of Sentrol part numbers, everyone will have a Sentrol equivalent or a Sentrol duplicate of that. For many years, though, Sentrol products did come at a premium in price. Not that long ago, maybe in the last 12 to 18 months, Sentrol switches can happily or easily cost the same or less than a cheap copycat product. None of the switches are very much more expensive, if any more expensive, than other no-name products. Even today, nearly all security tender specs would call for a Sentrol product by name or by part number. And they do have a lifetime warranty, which, based on my 300 odd years worth of operation, probably is a no-brainer. Some of the things, though, that we would look at when choosing a reed switch for an application would be the application that we're using that switch in. Do we want it to be a flush mount or a surface mount or a heavy duty? What voltage? And the next few don't really apply to the security industry if used as a zone on an alarm panel. But what voltage will be placed across the reed switch? If we exceed the maximum, welding of the contacts will probably occur and the switch will malfunction. The same with current, the amount of current that is going to be run through a reed switch. What is the loop configuration? Is it going to be a normally open or a normally closed, or do we need a changeover contact like a single pole double throw switch? What's the distance that the reed switch and the magnet will need to operate at? Is it 5 mil, 10 mil? Is it variable? That's sort of helpful to know as well. The dimensions of the reed switch can be important just to ensure that the switch will work and can be installed in the application that you have got. And last but not least, what color would you like the switch? Sentrol reed switches pretty much use the following legend that I've got here. The first 4 digits are the series of the product, and that's different for obviously different types of switches. There may be a letter or two after those numbers, and they would typically indicate, if it's W, it means it has a wide gap. If it's H, it would be high security. If it was a D, it would be a double pole, double throw switch. The last letter on the part number typically indicates a color. A few years ago, N meant natural, which was sort of an off-white color. M was what they call mahogany brown, and W is white. Pretty much these days, the N and the W are interchangeable, and that would be a white color. For our industry, if you're using the reed switch purely as a zone on an alarm panel, we don't need to worry about points 2, 3, and 4. Just where we're going to use it, what sort of gap that we've got, the dimensions to make sure it fits in, and then to pick a color. The switch will be a normally closed switch, and voltage and current aren't a consideration. So with those types of switches, we've got a full range of recess switches, of surface mount, of heavy duty switches for things like garage doors, roller doors, and tilter doors, specialty type switches that we'll talk about as well, and high security, and that can be high security in terms of a biased reed switch, or high security in terms of an explosion-proof reed switch like the picture is listed there. When we look at the configuration of a reed switch, so the top left picture shows a basic configuration of a standard 2-wire switch in which, when the magnet is brought towards the switch closes, as we can see there. It looks like the picture below it in real terms, as we saw before with our glass contact with our 2 contacts in the glass housing. We can also get the switch in a single pole double throw, or SPDT switch, where we have now a changeover. It's not just normally closed, it can be normally closed, or it can be normally open. In this case, rather than have 2 connections to the switch, there's potentially 3, a common and a normally open and a normally closed. Some switches are also available in a double pole, double throw, or DP-DT switch. I was unable to find a drawing for one of those, but ultimately it's just 2 of these switches, 2 of the single pole double throw switches in the same housing. So now we've got 6 connections, or 6 possible connections on the switch. So we've got 2 sets of contacts that are both changeover switches. Or potentially we could have, in this case we're showing a triple bias reed switch. Whether it's biased or triple biased, the switch configuration may change based on the manufacturer. In this particular instance, I'm not showing a Sentrol switch. I'm showing an SM3, which is another high security switch. In this particular case, it just has a single changeover contact. But the thing that determines whether it's a bias switch is whether there is an additional magnet located within the switch. In this case, we can see that there is what we call a bias magnet located in the same case as the reed switch. It works exactly the same as any other reed switch. That is, you bring another external magnet in front of the switch and the switch will change state. But unlike every other reed switch, that if you place another magnet on top of the reed switch, you can defeat it. And the magnet that's on the door can be opened and you won't generate an alarm. With a bias reed switch, the second that you try and introduce an additional magnet to the reed contact on a bias reed, it will either go into alarm or go into tamper, depending on the switch and how it was configured. So it gives added security against the potential to defeat a reed switch by, in our case, adding an additional magnet to bypass it. So wherever you see biased or triple biased or high security, it will normally, in fact always, refer to having a bias magnet located in the same housing as the reed switch or reed switches. So, as I've said, reed switches are pretty much used everywhere, and security is just one application. A large building could have anywhere between a couple of 100,000 to 700,000 or more reed switches in it, controlling everything from telephones to lift, automation, air conditioning, security. The list goes on and on. So you can see that reed switches are very much well accepted even today in all sorts of industries. I'm going to have a very hard time making the topic of reed switches interesting today, unfortunately. So we'll give it our best shot. So I've just said there, if you want a job, there's a job opening going on this building. And there's a crane operator at the top. I don't know if there's any hands going up for that job, but yeah, count me out. Thanks very much. What we're going to go through is to have a look at a few samples of data sheets from the Sentrol catalogue. And I want to highlight various things about looking at information and finding information within a data sheet. So when you come up with an application, it'll be a very much easier task for you to go and find the right switch for the application you have. As I've said, the next number of slides are all cut and paste from the data sheets for all of the Sentrol switches. Within about 2 hours at the end of this webinar, you will receive an email, and that email will contain a link to the full list of data sheets for all the current Sentrol products. So you can go through that or download that and have a look at that in your own time and just see there is basically hundreds of combinations of switches available, and we really don't have that amount of time to go through. So I want to highlight the important things, so when you look at the data sheets, you'll be able to immediately identify with what you require. For the first couple though, I might really go through in detail everything that the data sheet lists. So in this case, this is the very first switch in the recessed contacts for Sentrol, and it's called a 1058. The description says that it's a recessed, stubby magnetic contact with wire leads and a 1/4 inch diameter. Unfortunately, there'll be lots of imperial measurements in here. Some have been converted, some haven't. So you'll have to bear with me on anything that talks about inches and feet. So with a recessed stubby means short, and if we have a look at the reed switch on the picture on the right, we can see that the switch itself is only about half as deep as the magnet. So it's a very short, very small reed switch and accompanying magnet. The description of the switch says that it is designed for tight-fitting installations. The 1/4 inch diameter makes the contacts perfect for applications such as casements or awning-style windows and security screens. The contacts can either be recessed or flush mounted in a window frame channel and are difficult to detect in recessed door applications. Both contacts are sealed and potted in a housing. So it just means the glass is encapsulated in a plastic housing with a potting mixture. So it basically is waterproof and robust. So we can see some of the things here that we looked at earlier where it has a voltage level. So it says it works up to about 100 volt AC or DC, up to about half an amp of current through the switch. Its loop type is closed, which is of course ideal for a security system. Its electrical configuration is basically the reverse. So it's saying that the loop type is closed, that is when the magnet is put in front of the reed switch, it creates a closed circuit. But the reed switch itself is normally open. So when the magnet is not there, the reed switch is normally open. The gap distance, the distance between the reed switch and the magnet before the contact closes, is up to about half an inch. The lead type, we can see by the picture that there's wires coming off the reed switch. It comes with a foot or 30 centimeters worth of cable that you can connect into your existing circuit. The dimensions are important, so it lists the dimensions in the specifications, as will always show a picture as well of the switch and each of the lengths and diameters of each of the products. And it says that it comes in white or brown. So we can see on this particular switch that there are two different models of it. Very simple in our case here. It's a 1058N, so it's a switch in white, or exactly the same switch in mahogany brown. Different models of switches have different options and more options. So in the next few examples that you'll see the differences between some of these switches. So if we have a look at the next one in the series for a recessed switch is a 1072. The reason for showing this is there's a number of differences or important differences that you can see change between different series of reed switches. So this one says that it's a recessed flange magnetic contact with wire leads with a 3/8 inch in diameter. Why has this one got flanged on the reed and the magnet? It's because it's used when it adds integrity of a mounting. Sorry, the contact works well with both wooden and metal frame doors and windows. The two mounting holes in the flange provide additional strength to prevent the contact and magnet from becoming dislodged due to environmental changes, such as a door or window frame when it warps or it misaligns, or moisture from settling. And it comes with two number 2 sheet metal screws that allow you to fix that onto your frame or onto your door. In this particular case, a wide gap version is also available. Let's skip just the specifications for the moment and look down the bottom at the ordering information. So it says that standard switch comes in white. That switch also comes as a wide gap version in white. And that switch also comes with a double pole, double throw switch in white as well. So when we go back and have a look at the specifications, the 1072 can operate up to 100 volt DC. But you notice that the double pole, double throw version, which is the 1074, has a much lower spec. It says up to 30 volt AC or DC. You can appreciate that in a switch that small, that when you're adding twice as many sets of contacts, and it's in the same physical size, that the size of the contacts themselves must change, and therefore they don't have the same current or voltage capacity as the single switch. Again, in a standard security application, it really doesn't make a difference. But if this switch was controlling a lock or a mag lock on a door, or a light or some other apparatus, you would probably want to run that product through a relay and have the reed switch just operate the relay itself. So we can see with the loop type, the 1072 comes with the standard closed loop, and the 1074 can be open or closed because it has two sets of changeover contacts. The gap distance, this will be important to look at now. On the standard 1072, we can get up to half an inch of a gap. With the 1072 wide gap version, we can get up to 2.5 times that, or 1.25 inches of gap, and the reed switch can happily operate. The 1074, though, can only operate up to 3/8 of an inch, so marginally less than the standard switch. They all come with a foot of wire for connection to your zone. They've all got obviously the same dimensions, and in this case, this particular series of switch only comes in white. Another recessed reed switch is probably the most common reed switch that is available in our industry, and it's a 1078 or potentially a 1078C, depending on the diameter of the switch. In this case, we're looking at the 1078. What's so special with this one? It says the 1078 recessed contacts are designed specifically for use in steel doors, commonly found in commercial building applications. The unique housing design of the 1078 features a rugged unibody construction with flexible ribbed sides for quick, secure installation without gluing. The magnet housing isolates the magnet from the surrounding steel to give maximum gap distance. We can see by the amount of text under all of this that this is available in many different models. And I will run through them, but I'll try and run through them quickly. You've got your standard 1078 in white. We also can get that in brown. We can get a wide gap version of that in white, a wide gap in brown, a wide gap in grey. We also can get a changeover or a single pole double throw switch in white, in brown, and in grey also. That switch can also come in a wide gap version in white and brown. We can get a high security, a bias version in white. We can also get the double pole, double throw version in white, brown, and grey. So there's lots of different options for this particular switch. This is, as I said, a very popular switch for all sorts of doors, whether they're steel doors, whether they're fire doors, whether they're internal doors. It's a very easy switch to fit. It obviously is very easy to wire, and with the standard or the wide gap, we can see here that the standard gap is up to half an inch. With the wide gap version, it goes up to about an inch gap, and that's with a full steel frame and a full steel door. So excellent range on a switch that's located or mounted in steel. If we have a look at a slightly different switch, there's two things about this switch that are different to the ones that we've seen so far. Firstly, it doesn't have any flying leads. It doesn't have any cables coming out of it. It has screw terminals for connection. And the other thing is the magnet on this particular unit is considerably smaller than anything that we've seen so far. So this has got what we call a rare earth magnet. It's a very small magnet, very much like a button cell battery. It has a hole in the middle. It could be glued or screwed into place. Obviously it's extremely narrow, so it can fit into the most narrowest channel on a door. And again, we can see the various specs for that particular switch. If we move and have a look at some of the surface mount switches, this is one of their standard, Sentrol standard, small adhesive or screwed switch, a 1032 series. So it comes with both double adhesive tape for quick and easy installation onto wood or metal, as well as holes and supplied screws to screw it into place for a more permanent fixture. And again, from here we can see that the gap distance is up to, in this case, 5/8 of an inch, or the wide gap version works up to an inch away, which is pretty good for a switch which is only 38 millimeters in width. A more standard reed switch, the 1045 series. I might just speed up a little bit on these. They're all now much the same. They're all slightly different styles, slightly different measurements, but you're getting an idea on how it's easy to find a switch from the catalogue with both the information and the picture that you need. So the 1045 would be what I would class as a standard surface mount reed switch in Sentrol. The 2202 series roller reeds are perfect for overhead doors, roller shutters, garage doors. And again, that comes in a variety of sizes, and it comes with two, or can come with two different style magnets depending on how the installation is going to occur on a roller door, whether it's side mounted or whether it's floor mounted. The 2500 series works in basically the same applications, but won't work floor mounted because it would have to be cut into the concrete or the floor. This is something that would typically be used on safes or vaults or overhead doors. The 2302 series is absolutely perfect for overhead doors. It comes with a very adjustable magnet and reed switch to allow it a great load of flexibility on all sorts of overhanging doors. And again, comes in a few different varieties, and we can sort of see from here on this particular switch, this has a gap distance up to 3 inches in total. So pretty much will work on any overhead door without problems. The 2700 series comes in quite a variety of different options. Most of these switches, again, are used for safes, vaults, or doors in high security environments. There's a number of high security or biased models within this range. The 2800 series is a the picture doesn't actually do it justice. There's actually a very big reed switch and a very big magnet. These ones are explosive proof and are very much meant for whether it be high security, this is a SCECA approved product, or in areas where intrinsically safe reed switches are required. When we have a look at a couple of the different specialty or unusual switches that are available within the catalogue, this particular one is what's called a Magnapool, and the reed switch with the cable on it in the picture actually just inserts into the magnetic housing that's there, and allows you to put the reed switch in or to pull it out. So now in cases where it's absolutely impossible to put a standard reed switch because the mounting won't work or the application's wrong or the gap's wrong, we can still have a contact on that door or that window or whatever structure it is, because now we've got a large flying lead where this contact is, and we're physically placing that contact into the magnet when we're securing that door and removing it when we're unsecuring that door. So literally anything can be secured with this 1005 series product. There's a variety of panic buttons available as well. This is just one of the series, the 3040 series. It's available with all sorts of options. They come in with LEDs, without LEDs, latching, momentary, and a very good hold up or duress buttons. There's sort of been a very quick overview of some of the switches. As I said, there's absolutely hundreds of variations of reed switches, and they cover just about most applications. As I've said previously, in the next probably 2 hours from now, you'll get an email that has a link of 3 of the catalogues for Sentrol switches, and that will include the full range of switches that are available from Sentrol. So I would highly recommend that you download that and have a look through. I mean, the short 20 minutes or so that we go through today doesn't do the product any justice in terms of the amount of products or the flexibility in those products. The only thing that's really important to remember when you select your switch is the application, where it's going. Does it need to be flush, surface? Does it need to be heavy duty? Is it going on an alarm system zone? If so, then the standard normally closed contact is more than needed. If it's not, then you need to select the correct output type, whether it's a single pole, double throw, double pole, double throw, switch, or the correct voltage for the device that you're operating. Do you require a wide gap? Would be another question to ask. If so, then select a switch that has the gap requirement that you need. If you're in doubt or you don't know, then I would probably say that a wide gap switch is a good alternative. Then select your color. It seems a pretty simple task, but there's some people out there that love to select a color of a switch that blends in so the reed switch doesn't stand out. There are others that I've seen over the years that pick the absolute reverse color, so a reed switch does stand out, so it does show somebody that it has got security and it is protected. The choice certainly is up to yourself. But reed switches, though, certainly are the oldest form of security detection devices around. You know, they're absolutely the most basic product in the security portfolio, and certainly easily the most reliable and false alarm free. And if they're installed correctly, they'll last a lifetime without failure. For the most part, reed switches have remained, as I've sort of said earlier, pretty much unchanged for the last 80 odd years. I know if I had someone from Sentrol here, they would tell me that there's all sorts of things that they've done to enhance and improve the switch, and no doubt that is true. But ultimately, it's still two wires in a glass tube controlled by an external magnetic source. The fact that considering reed switches are the cheapest component in a security system, doesn't it make sense to install the best switch in all your applications? So hence I would suggest that you choose Sentrol. If you'd like to know more, I suppose first up that you will get that email with the complete list of switches soon. If you want to go online and find some more information, you can get all the brochures and data sheets from our website. You can subscribe to our newsletter and receive monthly information. Or you can register on our website and get full access and purchase product and download technical information from our site as well. Or feel free to contact any of the people listed here in the regions that you're located in, or happily contact myself at any stage for further information. Alarm Corp's now on Facebook, LinkedIn and Twitter, so please just do a search and either follow or like us, and we have a whole bunch of different feeds coming through that will give you interesting information in our industry. Alarm Corp will be conducting regular webinars for the remainder of the year as well. Every third Thursday, we'll be holding an intrusion-based webinar. The next one on the 17th of July is on our range of SCEC-approved products. And every second Wednesday of the month, we hold a CCTV webinar. The next one coming up is on the 9th of July. Camera lenses, standard, day-night, megapixel. What lens to choose? To register on any future webinar or to view any previous webinar, just go to our website, click on resources, then webinars. When you attend any of our webinars, you have access to special promotions and special pricing. And this is through our e-commerce platform online. So if there are any orders for this month, type in the code JuneWeb14 and you'll get an additional 10% off your already discounted items other than for SiPass, Sony and Verint products. Okay, so if you have a question and haven't asked it already, now's the time to do it, and I will answer those as they come through. Okay, I've got one coming up here. Funny question. Are you saying reed switches don't fail? No, I'm not saying that. But typically, in my opinion, there's only two causes that can make them fail. One is mechanical interference, like someone knocking a switch off with something like a forklift or a trolley, or it's not installed correctly and it falls off because it's hitting against something. That's more than likely the reason a reed switch fails. If it was installed in a better location or potentially a different switch chosen for the job, that can pretty much be eliminated or reduced. So that sort of damage won't occur. The only other thing that reed switches potentially could do is when the contacts weld together. In other words, they lock into a secure position and they don't go into alarm anymore. This used to occur regularly back in the good old days. And I'm guessing potentially on some cheaper brands, maybe it still occurs, I don't know. But all Sentrol reed switches have got gold-plated contacts. And that sort of either eliminates or greatly reduces the ability for those contacts to weld together. Is Sentrol the only brand you sell? Well, I suppose that's a yes or no answer. The short answer is no, there are other brands that we do sell. We do have a no-name brand, but in the last 12, 18 months, when Sentrol pricing has really fallen into line with other no-name switches that are out there, we find that in 95% of applications, the Sentrol switch will be the same price or cheaper than its no-name competitor. So the answer would be no, we're selling predominantly Sentrol reed switches. The only change to that is we also sell other brands of high security SCEC approved switches. And we sell a high security switch from a company called Wells Fargo and Gardel. They're the only switches that we do sell. Another question, does the magnetic field of the magnet deteriorate with age, causing an issue after the gap distance? The magnetic field typically won't change. In the last 30 years, yes, I've seen a few magnets that had need to be replaced. Typically, they're only when the magnet has been in constant contact with a metal frame or a metal door. I find that over the years that the magnetic field ultimately will reduce. But when installed, in timber or any other construction, the magnetic field will seem to last for, certainly the lifetime of the installation. As I've shown with the 1078 series, they're designed for mounting on a steel frame or on a steel door or next to steel for that matter. The magnet is positioned directly in the middle and it's covered with its plastic shroud. So it's a good 10 to 15 millimeters away from any metal when using that particular switch. I can't honestly say I've ever seen the magnets on one of those deteriorate with for any reason, to be honest. Someone else has sort of asked the same question. Does a metal door frame affect the gap distance? In expanding on that, yes, it does. But any of the switches that are in the Sentrol catalog that say they work with a metal frame or a metal door, the gap distance that's specified there is the gap distance that you will get in metal. For those contacts that aren't meant for a metal frame, you'll find that there will be a reduction in the distance that the magnet will operate the reed switch, and that could be substantial. It might be up to half of the gap distance that was specified. But as I said before, on a switch like this 1078, the gap distance is listed there is the gap distance in metal. If there's no other questions, then I'd like to thank you for attending our webinar and certainly appreciate the time you've taken out of your schedule today. It has been a little bit quick and it hasn't been one of my best webinars, but I certainly hope you found it beneficial, and we absolutely look forward to seeing you at the next one, and we hope you enjoy the remainder of your day. Say goodbye.